So you're looking for a fun roadster, and you've already looked at the Miata, too basic. You already looked at the S2000, too expensive. And now you're looking at the BMW Z3, but you don't want it because it sucks. So you start looking for other imported roadsters, and you find this thing. It's about half the size of a Miata, but it's got a turbo, and it kind of looks cool. So now you're looking it up, and you're here watching this buyer's guide. So today we're going to talk about everything that you need to know about this car before buying one. Before we get started, make sure to like the video down below and subscribe, join the Discord. Let's get into the video. So let's get into the difference between the years and the trims. From 1991 to 1994, From 1991 to 1994, the Cappuccino came with the F6A engine, which is a turbo 3-cylinder dual overhead cam that made 657 cc, which translates to 63 horsepower. It also made 63 foot-pounds of torque. And what's really cool about this is even though this is such a small motor making such little horsepower, it still was dual overhead cam. And a lot of cheap cars back then had single overhead cam because, you know, it couldn't fit into the budget. Well, this has a turbo plus it's dual overhead cam. So this motor, even though it makes 63 horsepower, is still pretty cool. The car only weighed 1,600 pounds and had a 50-50 weight distribution just like a Miata, which means it's better for the twisties. In 1995, they took out the F6A and upgraded it to the K6A, which was not only lighter but was chain driven instead of belt driven like the F6A. Because of this, it added more torque and went from 63 foot-pounds to 76 foot-pounds. So this is definitely the one to get. They also added lighter wheels to make that 63 horsepower pack a little bit more of a punch, and they optioned a 3-speed automatic if you only got one arm and one leg. But most Cappuccino sales were in the first 2 years, so finding any of these 95 and above versions, and if you really want an automatic, are going to be very, very hard to find. And you might be asking, why did they not add more horsepower? They added more torque, no more horsepower. It's because for it to be a K car in Japan, it has to have under 64 horsepower. They already trend the line, and if, you know, they added at least one more horsepower, they'd be pushing it. And then the people who bought it wouldn't get the tax break, and there would be no reason to buy the K car versus, say, a bigger car like a Miata. And if you want to go for the top trim package, you're going to be looking for the BA variant. This came loaded with an optional airbag for the driver, a limited slip differential, ABS for all 4 wheels, and power operated windows, which is pretty cool because this was a 90s car that was also supposed to be cheap and affordable. Their whole slogan was like a roadster you now can afford, which is pretty crazy because the MSRP for this car was like $12,000, so it was really cheap. And this car came with ABS. My 2003 Pontiac Vibe Outside doesn't even have ABS. This thing in the 90s had it. Not to mention that all 4 disc brakes and an LSD. I mean, this car is really ahead of its time for being a cheap, bare-bone, fun roadster. So now let's go on to the common problems that this car has. I'm gonna be real with you, there's not that many problems. Suzuki is a great company just like Toyota, and they make the cars literally bulletproof, so there's not too much to worry about on the Cappuccino. One of the most major problems that this car has is that it's weak synchros, especially in the second gear. So if you're test driving a Cappuccino and second gear is hard to get into, let the car warm up a little bit, and if it warms up and it's still hard to get into, then there's an actual problem, but if it gets easier, then it's all fine and good. Next up is check the wiring on these cars. The OEM wiring harness is completely fine. There's no problems with it, but when they start adding stuff on there like aftermarket alarms and fog lights, for example, and those little toll boost things that you see in these Japanese cars that come over here, watch out for that type of stuff, because if they did a shoddy job, they could have messed something up and something could have not been connected, and overall it just looks bad if it's just not done right. And one huge one that you have to look out for is rust. I mean, these cars all came from Japan or the UK. Both of those places have snow and colder climates, which means that they're gonna have some rust. It just depends on how much. So make sure to check the car thoroughly over and see if there's any potential problems. If it's not that big of a deal, you can bargain the price down, and if it is a huge deal, just stay away from the car, because eventually there'll be another one that will come up. And the last problem that you need to make sure you check out for is if you're buying a pre-95 Cappuccino that comes with the F6A. Remember, this engine was belt driven, so you need to check the belt and see when it was last replaced. If it hasn't been replaced in a while, I would make sure to do that, because if it snaps, this is an interference engine, and there goes your precious engine.
Oh no.
Now let's get into the parts that will be a little bit of a treat if you get your car and you find them in there. First off, and one of the biggest ones, is the BBS wheels that came on this car. You could get them as an upgrade, and you'll be able to tell right off the bat if they're BBS or not, because they look completely different than the other stock wheels. But yeah, if you get these, you're looking at more of a highly optioned Cappuccino. Something that's really cool that you could find in the interior of your car is the optional subwoofer. It's a little brown box on the car. I'm not really sure if we'll be able to play a song like Mo Bamba at top volume, but it is still a pretty cool thing if you're trying to play some more period correct music. And if you're running out of room, you could actually get a cargo lid for the trunk. I'm not too sure how functional it is because it does look super small. I think maybe you could fit one business briefcase on there, but you know, it is better than nothing. And the last thing that might be pretty cool to get with your Cappuccino that might be in the trunk area is a tonneau cover that fits over the whole interior when the convertible top is down so that the sun doesn't hit it. It can either cover just the left-hand side, your passenger, or it can cover the full driver's side too. I'm not really sure if you can drive with this, but it is super cool. If you're not using your passenger seat and you don't want the sun to hit it, just put this bad boy on there and it'll stay minty fresh. Now on to the 5 rarest colors. Actually, never mind, just 5 colors in general that you can get on this car. There wasn't too many options you could pick. So first off on the list, silver. Silver is going to be a very common color. This was one of 2 options that you could only get in the UK. So out of the 1,000 that were sold in the UK, the only 2 options were silver or red. So that brings me to my next point, another basic red. This is going to be a very common color. It's a little tiny sports car. I mean, what do you expect? And this was the second option of the only 2 colors you could get in the UK. Now we're going to start getting into the rarer colors just because these are the ones that are only offered in Japan. We've got champagne. If you're thinking about buying a gray, you might as well buy the champagne because it just has a little bit more spark to it and it looks just a little bit better. But then again, it's not that type of color to stand out. So if you're just looking for something a little bit more rare than silver, this is your best bet. Next on the list, this is about the same rarity as champagne. This is the green color. Now this color is actually kind of cool because it looks between blue and green depending on how you look at it. And this is more my type of color that I would get. And by far the rarest color for this car is on the limited Cappuccino is the 1FG Deep Blue Pearl. I can justify that this color looks the best out of all of them. It's either this one or the dark green. Yeah, this is definitely another solid color to get the Cappuccino in. So hope you guys did enjoy this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. I start editing these videos a little bit differently. Let me know if you like this style or if I should go back to the old style. And make sure to join the Discord. If you have any cars that you want to see a buyer's guide, leave that in the comments too. See you guys next one. Peace out.